Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Money Matters Top Tips for Success, where each and every day I bring on new business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and have them share their top tips for success with you. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at @AdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Paul Zelizer on the line, and he's a business coach for conscious entrepreneurs over at Zelizer Consulting Services, and also the host over at the Awarepreneurs podcast. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, first off, I'm excited to get into what you're doing over at Zelizer Consulting Services, and also to talk more about your podcast. But before we do that, let's get into how you got started. So how'd you get started in your career and in business?
Great question. So I'm in my second career, multiple iterations, but the first career is I really interested in human change processes and how as humans do we, like, when something's not quite working in our life, either personally or professionally or relationship-wise or parenting, how do humans go from kind of being off track to a little more on track? And I've been obsessed with that question for decades now, because I had some experiences of being pretty off track, pretty young, with particularly drugs. So some very skillful people helped me get on track, and that's been a passion of mine now for about 35 years. So my first career was in community mental health and doing things like helping small communities in northern New Mexico think about how do we make changes and families make changes when addiction was in a family or family violence, or how can we engage young men as fathers when maybe they started off with a rough start and, you know, found themselves being a dad and not really prepared for that role. So I did that for 15 years, got a master's degree in counseling, and did a lot of work around, engaging young men as fathers and restorative justice and things like that. And then after about 15 years, burned out and needed to reinvent myself, and reinvented myself as a coach. And kind of, I can tell you about that, but basically by accident, I like to joke the universe tricked me into being a business coach. I found myself along on a ride. A friend of mine started a conference. I helped him come up with a brand. It's called Wisdom 2.0. It's in Silicon Valley. And I went from living in a small town in northern New Mexico to suddenly being at Google and Facebook and Twitter and having conversations about these super powerful technologies. But the conversation my friend wanted to have was, what's the wise use of them? He was also somebody into meditation and wellness. And suddenly we found ourselves Zappos talking to Tony Hsieh and the leadership team at Zappos on the day they were handing out T-shirts to their employees saying, thank you for making us $1 billion a year company. And Tony Hsieh is fascinated by positive psychology and the business use of it, which was a conversation that I was really, really excited about. And suddenly, found myself like going to these incredible places with these very, very skillful leaders. And that was about 13 years ago, and I got into the conscious business world and been doing it ever since.
That's awesome. Let's switch up a bit. I do want to get further into Zelizer Consulting Services. So first, let's start with your title. So business coach for conscious entrepreneurs. What does that mean to you?
You know, people who are, anybody who's like in business with some intentionality besides, how do I make a ton of money? Now, I like money, right? But it's kind of this funny paradox when that's our only value, right? Simon Sinek says, start with why. Like, why are you doing something? And what's the impact you want to have besides like filling up your own bank account? Because when that's the only thing we're paying attention to as business leaders or entrepreneurs, people can feel it. It feels really transactional. Basically, you see me as a wallet, and you're relating with me in this transactional way, trying to get the dollars out of my wallet. We know that as human beings when somebody's relating that way. So it's this weird paradox, and I'm actually glad that it works this way, that if the only thing you're trying to do in business is make money, you're going to have a hard time making money, right? Mm-hmm. So I work with people who understand that at a very deep level and are thinking about things, about helping, you know, whether it's an individual or a company, ask deeper questions and say, what do you hear? What's the purpose? What's your why? What are your values? And how are you building that into your company or into your services or into your product? And then how do we then think about things like the story you're telling, whether it's on a podcast or a YouTube channel, or like what's your website copy look like, or who can help you build that website. I don't build websites, but I have a fabulous group of designers that I work with. I just got an email from somebody who does book covers for these kinds of businesses. When the why is important in the business or in the service or in the product, and somebody's trying to figure out how to grow it, tell that story, create marketing channels and websites that tell that story well, and they want some help, my name shows up on a short list of people who can help somebody do that often enough that I get to live a good life. That's what my business is all about.
That's awesome. What is so I know different coaches have different, and it just depends. So when we use the term business coach, so there's a lot of business owners right now listening. So there's business owners, entrepreneurs, executives at varying levels of their career listening as we speak. That being said, what is the right type of client that you like to work with? So is it and I mean in stage of their career. Are you working with only executives, like, for example, the Zappos example you gave, or do you work also with startups? What's your ideal client that you fit with?
Tony Hsieh is not a client of mine, and Zappos is not a client. I don't tend to work with big companies. I tend to work with smaller companies, 50 employees or less, all the way down to solo entrepreneurs who are pretty early on in their business in varying degrees of ways. So my one-on-one clients tend to be people who are further along, micro businesses of people with 5 or 10 or 20 employees and are looking to grow something. Pretty common client for me is somebody who's doing pretty well. I'm thinking of a client who's she was a very successful awareness-based counselor. She was seeing 35 to 40 clients a week, and they're trying to do paperwork and other things on top, her bookkeeping, and just run a business on top of it. She's like, Paul, there's not enough hours in a week. And she was so busy that she didn't have time to answer the new inquiries that were on her voicemail machine. She was trained as a counselor and was thinking as a one-on-one, like you do. Her product, so to speak, was really strong one-on-one counseling, and that was what she was trained for, and she was fabulous at it and was built such an amazing reputation. She couldn't keep up with the demand, but she had never really thought about how to do group programs or create an online course or write a book, more leveraged forms of leveraging what she learned over many years of doing this into something that could help more people. She was using the mindset that she was trained in as an individual psychotherapist. So that's what I'm particularly, I just love doing that. When somebody's hitting the upper threshold that they're running out of hours and they want to transition into groups, retreats, books, online services, things like that, but they have a depth and a quality of what they do and how they're currently configured, and they're concerned about losing it. And they want leverage, but they don't know how to do it in a deep and effective way. That's my absolute joy zone.
That's exciting. So, Paul, what if somebody is listening to this and they do want to follow up? What's the best way for them to do that?
For that part of my work, it's my name, Paul, and the last name is Z like in zebra, E-L-I-Z like in zebra, E-R. And
fantastic.
PaulZelizer.com.
Well, Paul, it's been a pleasure having you on the show and learning more about what you do, your background, and how you're helping your clients and furthering the message of conscious entrepreneurship. I love it. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store, do all those great things we do to support our podcasters. I really do appreciate it. And Paul, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam. I so much appreciate it.